Welcome to Pastor's Chat today. Well, today we begin a new psalm and a new book in the book of Psalms. This Psalm 107 is the beginning of book 5. Now remember, we said that Psalm, by some editor along the way, as God gave us his revelation of his word, was able to divide the book of Psalms into 5 different books that relate to the first 5 books of the Bible: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, which means this 5th book of Psalms is related to the book of Deuteronomy, and that was, of course, the review of the law that Moses gave to Israel just before they went into the promised land. And we see in this book how God has redeemed his people out of the land of Egypt, how he set them free, and how he has given them a new life. Now, in particular, this psalm, Psalm 107, relates, we believe, to the captivity period in Babylon when the people of God were delivered from that captivity by Cyrus, the Persian king, after the Babylonian captivity. 70 years of captivity had been fulfilled that Jeremiah had written about. And then Daniel prayed, "Oh God, deliver us." And of course, in fulfillment to the prophecy, that 70 years after captivity, they would return to the land. The people did return to the land, but they all didn't return to the land. Many of them stayed in Babylon. But there were some, by the grace of God, through the power of God, and through the providence of God, who made the long 4-month journey back to Jerusalem. And first thing they did was rebuild the altar of God. They knew they needed the cross of Christ, the redemptive power of Christ, to give them the strength they needed to face the future that they would be facing. Even as they rebuilt the temple, they rebuilt the city of Jerusalem, they rebuilt their nation. And so they go back. Now, this psalm, many tell us that it's the beginning of this 5th book, but Psalm 107 all the way through Psalm 119, all these psalms are related to the captivity, the people, the remnant, they're called the remnant that went back to Jerusalem, and they rebuilt the altar. And then the next year they rebuilt the foundation of the temple. And as they rebuilt the foundation of the temple, if you'll read back in Ezra and Nehemiah, the history books that tell us about this period of time, you'll find that the people rejoiced. The old people that remember the former temple, they cried, and yet at the same time the people are happy that God has given them back their land. God has put them back there through his providence. Now, as you go through this psalm, you're going to read some things over and again, because the people talk about affliction. There's certain words for your interest that show up in verse 2. We see adversity. In verses 6, 13, 19, and 28, they have trouble and distress. In verses 10, 26, and 39, it talks about their misery. In verse 12, it speaks of labor. In verses 17 and 41, it talks about their affliction. In verse 20, the destruction. Verse 39, oppression. Verse 39, sorrow. And so here these people have gone through a difficult time, and I see over and again, and we'll see this as we talk through it over the next few days, that this is a picture of every sinner who needs to be redeemed by the power of God. And it always happened, as you see at least 4 times, there's a phrase that's repeated, then they cried unto the Lord in their trouble. They cried unto the Lord in their misery. They cried unto the Lord in their distress, and the Lord heard them. And the Lord heard them. Now we're going to see that as we go through this psalm, and we're going to be encouraged to know that God does redeem his people. He has a plan and purpose for them, and God's in control. Oh, give thanks to the Lord, it begins, for he is good, for his mercy endures forever. Let the redeemed of the Lord say so, whom he has redeemed from the hand of the enemy, and gathered them out of the lands from the east and from the west, from the north and from the south. So today, let's be a part of that group of people that let the Lord know we are thankful for his redemption. He has saved us through the blood of Jesus Christ, and we want the whole world to know about it. Well, that's what Psalms 107 does. Well, God bless you, and you have a wonderful, wonderful day.